Welcome to the third webinar dedicated to empowerment. I'm here with my student and colleague Tyler Blank, the organizer of ecstatic dance community in the East Bay Area in California, and teacher of Acro Yoga, and a student of QiGong. Thank you, Tyler, for being here with us today.
It's wonderful to be here with you, Lama. And of course, I'm here with the Lama Tantrapa, the founder of the Academy of QiDao, and also the creator of QiGong Coaching. Thank you for being with us.
I would like to jump right into our subject of empowerment, which we already covered in the previous couple of webinars, one with you, Tyler, and one with another student of mine, Nathan. In those webinars, we went over a number of great topics about empowerment, from the reasons why most people don't experience empowerment as often and as intensely in their lives as they would like to, the ways that we can boost our empowerment through mental processes, such as letting go of judgments about good and bad, developing ability to recognize that there are no problems, there are just learning opportunities, knowing that there are energies that contribute to our experiences, and our own energy is majorly involved in manifestation of events in our lives. And also understanding the principles that support empowerment with regard to health, as well as relationships and even parenting. Now, today we are going to dive deeper into our study of empowerment and explore some of the practical applications of these principles, as well as understanding how to bring empowerment into our daily life.
That sounds great to me. There's so many times when I'll speak for myself, when I don't feel empowered, and I'm wondering why I don't feel that more of the time. Is there a certain time where I was really young and always in the flow and always being empowered and somehow lost it? Or is it just not as conducive in this society? And what can I do to come out of it? Basically, those physical practices, and or maybe there are also mental attitudes and beliefs also that I can change.
Well, this is a really important and profound question of how to tap into that source of empowerment within ourselves and bring it to the foreground on a regular basis. And as you mentioned, when you were younger, perhaps you were feeling more empowered more often, maybe even on a daily basis. And what is it that you can do now to regain that level of empowerment and sense of flow? Well, this is very close to what we were talking about in our previous webinars, when I mentioned that it's essential that we become the role model, especially if we're talking about relationships, whether it's intimate relationships or relationships as parents and child. We essentially need to provide the role model. We would be really lucky to have somebody in our lives who serves this role of an empowerment catalyst. There are few and far between. And so if we don't have anybody who is present in our life, who we can actually observe in daily life and learn from them through observation how to be empowered, well, perhaps we can use ourselves. We can become our own role model of empowerment. What do I mean by that? If we experienced empowerment in the past, or if we felt like we were in the flow more often than not, and now we don't feel that way, something changed. With age, perhaps with becoming a family man or women, perhaps with acquiring more education, or as I often refer to it, social domestication, we forget how to live in a flow. If you could imagine for a moment watching a movie about your life, would you be able to rewind until you find the episode when you were particularly in the flow, Tyler? The time when you were feeling really connected and natural, feeling like there was abundance of energy available to you.
Most of my childhood, outside of when I was in school.
So there was difference between the way that you felt at school versus outside the school.
Definitely. I was not empowered in school, needing to follow rules and social norms and responsibilities of being an obedient student.
Exactly. That's why I call it domestication. It's like we are domesticated to obey certain rules and regulations. Even the idea of education is so twisted nowadays that it doesn't really contribute to empowerment. It often robs us of the low energy that we have. So, how can we get into that state of consciousness that was associated with the way that we felt back when we were empowered? So if you rewind the movie about your life and find that episode or a period of time in your life when you felt particularly empowered, particularly in the flow, perhaps when you were a kid, often I hear from people who I work with as a coach that they experienced those times when they were out in nature. I wonder if you could imagine just finding that episode in your life and watching it as if you were playing a movie. Or even imagine being a fly on the wall and observing yourself from a third party's perspective. And this fly on the wall doesn't care about your appearance or what you were doing exactly. What the fly is watching for is energy. What kind of energy did you have back then that was associated with being in the flow? What would you say, Tony?
Well, I was full of energy, overflowing and abundant with curiosity, and that energy had with it a sense of freedom. Freedom on one hand and a lack of fear on the other. That's the sense that allowed for being in the moment, a sense of engagement with life, a lack of second guessing or thoughts or self-consciousness.
So what you're saying is, back then, you had this energy that was associated with freedom, curiosity, and fearlessness. And if this energy had any color to it, or any texture, or any other quality like that, how would you describe it?
It's just vibrant, outside of the lines.
Excellent. And if you could zoom into your body from the fly on the wall perspective, where in your physical body was that energy concentrated the most? What was the energy center associated with that type of energy?
I noticed it flowing out from the center, all the way up the spine, out the head, out the center outward.
Very nice. So you actually find the particular area in your body that's associated with the vibrant energy that is associated with freedom, curiosity, and fearlessness. Now, if you were to be able to connect with that energy, what would be the easiest way for you to do that at the present time?
The breath certainly helps. Just even a willingness, like I said, that sense of curiosity again.
Yeah.
I don't know that I was even aware of it back then, but it's like something to be relearned, or some unlearning needs to happen, or some willingness again.
Right. It was natural to you.
Trying to get back to that wild state.
Right. The funny thing about our practice is that many of our practices are dedicated to relearning how to be natural. It's almost like learning how to be spontaneous. How in the hell do you learn how to be spontaneous or how to be natural? Well, essentially, it's mostly about letting go or peeling off certain layers of artificialness that have been imposed upon us or that we've accumulated as our karmic layers of energy trying to protect ourselves from the scary world that we somehow started believing that we live in. As we let go of these walls that we surround ourselves with, greater flow of energy becomes available. We can feel that flow, and we can move with much greater freedom, relaxation, and power at the same time. It's kind of a funny thing that relaxation and power go hand in hand. When we're tense, we actually can't experience power because even muscles, when they're tense, can function. Because the functioning of the muscle consists of the ability to contract and relax. If the muscle is contracted all the time, it can't contract much further, and it can't relax. If it could, it would have done so a long time ago. So essentially, it becomes an impediment to movement. So that's why I often refer to tension as frozen movement. So there is a wonderful practice that I would like to introduce today. It's called the centering exercise. It is directly dedicated to finding your center, bringing your attention to it. And the more attention you give to your center, the more energy flows there, creates a circulation of energy, and allows that energy within your center to become the driving force in your action. And in a matter of seconds, maybe a minute and a half max. Would you like to practice that today?
Let's do it.
So I'm going to get up off the chair, and as I stand, I'm going to simply turn from side to side. The turning like this doesn't require any particular technique, isn't difficult to do, doesn't require much flexibility. All it requires is bringing attention to the axis of rotation. And this axis of rotation, around which I pivot from side to side, is very close to the spine. It's not like turning around the stomach. I don't want to turn around the stomach like this, because the weight of my body is mostly on the back. Bone structure is the dense part of the physical body. So the skeleton is more dense than the internal organs and skin and muscles because it's hard matter. And so, where is the skeleton? Well, the spine is called the backbone. So obviously it's closer to the back. Shoulder blades are in the back. Most of the pelvis is in the back. So the weight of the body is actually more towards the back than the front. If I rotate around the center of mass of my body, I need to rotate around the back rather than the front. And allow the arms to swing around completely free, like two loose ropes with a little weight. What happens after just a few seconds, maybe half a minute to a minute of this movement? Most people notice something that begins to happen with their breathing. The breathing patterns begin to change, becoming deeper and smoother and more relaxed. And the reason for that is that as you become more aligned with your spine, you start allowing the bone structure of your body, the skeleton, to carry the weight of your body. Most people struggle against gravity by using the tension of their muscles to fight against gravity. Well, you don't see a lot of people win in this fight. People don't start levitating. And they just waste a tremendous amount of energy fighting against gravity. They feel like they have no energy available to them. They feel disempowered. And they also develop tensions in the body. Well, what does tension do? We already talked about how muscles can't function very well when there is tension. So they become weaker. Range of motion becomes limited, so they have less flexibility. By the way, mental and physical flexibility go hand in hand. So often people who experience less physical flexibility also have less mental flexibility, and vice versa. And tense areas of the body don't allow the qi to flow freely through them. So they become energy blockages that impede the flow of qi, which obstructs the nourishment of internal organs and different systems of the body, which of course wreaks havoc in our health. Does it make sense?
So it does, thank you. So is empowerment synonymous with flow then?
I would say that empowerment is a result of being in the flow. In other words, when you are in the flow, you begin to feel more empowered. Empowerment is the subjective sense of how much access you have to resources and how much freedom you have to use them. But most of these resources are not outside of us. Most of the resources we're talking about are internal resources. Like that energy that you discovered was associated with that sense of curiosity, freedom, and fearlessness that you experienced as a child. There was an internal resource residing in the center of your physical body, right?
Right, and like with this exercise, for example, if I allow my skeleton to hold my body, it frees up my muscles and tendons to have more energy for other movements. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And the beautiful thing about it is that it frees up the movement. Like we were talking about how tension is frozen movement. So when you let go of tension, the movement begins to flow freely again. And there is no life without movement. So when we experience the release of tension, we actually begin to live more fully. If we allow ourselves to move more naturally, you are the way you move. So you actually begin to live more naturally. Again, returning to that state of naturalness that was associated with the greater sense of empowerment that you experienced, and many of us on this call experienced when we were children.
And like someone wrote in, will this make me happier? Is this going to allow me?
Well, let me ask you, would you feel happier or less happy if you tap into that sense of greater freedom, curiosity, and fearlessness that you experienced as a child?
I think so. I mean, it may make the roller coaster bigger, or uncover a whole nother level of challenges.
Yes, but those challenges are no longer going to be problems, as we already realized in our previous webinars. We already went over this whole principle of transitioning from perceiving any challenges as problems to perceiving any challenges that life throws our way as learning opportunities, right? So then we don't struggle with these challenges. We accept them and we pay attention to them. We learn from them, and we feel grateful for having those experiences in our lives. And of course, the power of gratitude is one of the key elements to empowerment, because then we focus our attention on that which we resonate with. And when we resonate with something and we pay attention to it, where attention goes, energy flows. It empowers that thing that we resonated with, that we appreciated in our lives. So we experience more of it. In the present moment, we focus our attention on that which we enjoy, so we are enjoying it more. And also in the future, we manifest more of that because for anything to manifest, there has to be energy that would support the manifestation. If we want to manifest that which we appreciate and like, we simply need to give more energy to that. How? By paying attention to it. If we pay attention to things that we don't resonate with, well, we contribute to manifestation of those exact things that we don't want to experience.
So as we become more empowered, does that come with it then a sense of more responsibility?
That's a great one. I would say responsibility goes hand in hand with ability to respond. That's the literal understanding of responsibility, right? Well, what does it mean, ability to respond? It's literally the ability to stop reacting to things and start responding to them. What's the difference between reaction and response? Well, reaction or reactivity, as we already covered in our previous webinar, is the action against oncoming forces. When some energy is flowing one way and we go against it, that is the epitome of reaction. When we respond to an oncoming force or energy current, is when we move with it, or we navigate around it, or we create a whirlpool, a turbulence that essentially works with this energy rather than against it. A perfect example of it is when two people practice together, doing this same centering exercise that we just did. And one person pushes the other while the person who's receiving the push is doing this centering exercise. What happens when you're really centered? It's impossible to push you over. You just pivot. Essentially, all you need to do is to feel where the energy is flowing. Is it flowing more to the right or more to the left of my center? Statistically speaking, it's very unlikely that the person would be able to distribute absolutely equal amount of pressure on both the right and left sides of your center line. So they're pushing either to the right or to the left more. Well, if you feel where the energy is flowing, you can go with the flow. So when the person is pushing you, if you react, you will be pushing against the person's energy, so you will be resisting. You will probably feel like you need to work hard to push back. Instead of working hard, we work smart. When the person pushes back, it requires effort. It requires tension. Where there is tension, there's going to be weakness. So the person who's pushing back against the push often become a better target. They become more rigid and easier to push over. But when the person is centered and relaxed, they rest the weight of their body on their bone structure. And then as any energy of the push is coming at them, they just sense where there is energy flowing. If there is more energy flowing to the left, well, they pivot to the left. If there is more energy flowing to the right, they pivot to the right.
Will we be playing with some of these exercises in the empowerment event?
Absolutely. This is an excellent practice to engage in, and also it's a lot of fun because it involves another person, the practice partner. When there are two people practicing like this, one essentially is testing the other, how responsive that other is. When you're really responsive, it's virtually impossible to push you over. And what we will do in our empowerment weekend in January the 23rd through 25th, we will do this and many other similar practices where we will be learning how to become invincible, impossible to push over, how to become relaxed and strong at the same time. And also not only on one place, we will also learn how to move with gracefulness and precision and power, using gravity to our advantage instead of fighting against gravity. And we'll learn how to project energy in whatever direction we want to with power instead of force. When we use power, we don't need to tense up. When we tense up and use force, it creates a forceful energy projection, but it often doesn't have power behind it. So, like I mentioned in our previous webinar, it actually becomes a question, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a forceful person or a powerful one? For example, if you are a politician, would you like to be a forceful politician or a powerful politician? Or if you're a businessman, would you like to be a powerful businessman or a forceful one? Or even in a relationship, would you like to be a forceful lover or a powerful one? Sounds like a rhetorical question, doesn't it?
Yeah. And so we'll have a chance to play with both of these dynamics, the differences as far as how our bodies align with our skeletons and with gravity, how to throw energy, how to flow with energy, move with it.
Exactly. And what we'll also do is we will compare. How does this work for you? How does that work for you? So don't take anything that I say or I introduce as a practice on face value and just assume that I know better than you what you need to experience in your life. You will be able to test and compare everything. Everything is relative. So what works for one person may not work just as well for another person, and vice versa. And also what works for you today may not work the same way tomorrow. So you'll be invited to continue testing everything. And when you test things, you develop authentic understanding of deep underlying principles behind all these practices. So you're not just doing forms or some repetitive routines or drills. You are putting the deep understanding of the principles into practice and test the applications so that nothing is just taken on faith. Everything is based on evidence that you develop through the process of testing. And of course, we will trade roles, so our practice partner also will have an opportunity to be tested. And we will learn how to test them using a very, very intelligent methodology that is based on something similar to muscle testing. Are you familiar with muscle testing, so-called applied kinesiology, Elliot?
Sure.
So the principle of applied kinesiology is pretty simple. If you resonate with something, your body relaxes. When your body relaxes, you become stronger, which is the opposite of what most people think. Most people confuse tension for strength. But we already understand that tense muscles are not providing you the strength that the relaxed muscles can. For example, try to push somebody with a tense arm. You'll only get so far. But if you relax the arm and then just send a ripple, a wave projection of energy down the arm, you'll have much greater capacity to actually move the person you're pushing. So what we'll do is we'll learn how to use gravity to make so that our testing is much more reliable. In muscle testing, the way that it's taught in applied kinesiology courses and programs, the person who's testing usually pushes with their strength. Again, they're using their own force, which, of course, is very subjective. So sometimes it's stronger, sometimes it's weaker. Instead of using force, we'll learn to use power. And this power depends on the gravity, which is pretty much a constant. So we don't have to rely on our own physical strength when we test each other. We rely on the constant G-force, which makes it much more reliable, duplicable, repeatable, so we can actually trust the results of our testing. Does it make sense?
The constant source of gravity to measure whether we feel stronger or weaker.
Exactly. And another thing that also happens in many tests that I've observed in applied kinesiology is that the muscle that is being tested eventually gets tired. For example, if you're testing anterior deltoid or whatever part of the body you're testing, the muscle will eventually start getting tired and will start giving you erroneous results. well, how can we trust this kind of tests? So we don't want to isolate any particular muscles. What we want to do is we want to work with the entire organism. We will learn how to test the entire organism and how relaxed it is, as opposed to an isolated muscle. When we do that, our tests become much more reliable, trustworthy, and consistent. And we'll be able to work with another person who will also learn how to do this type of testing, so then we don't fool ourselves trying to get the results that we think we should get. We actually have a second party testing us, and as they test us using natural gravity rather than their physical force, we will see that it gives us an opportunity to really authentically learn what works and what doesn't work. That's something that you will never forget. Once you learn how to determine what works for you, you will be able to retest it, find out over and over again what works. Then it's just a matter of understanding what's the principle behind it. So if you test something and it consistently works, then you'll be able to apply this in your daily life, and this will make it possible to consistently experience empowerment in your daily life. Because you know what you're doing. You know how to empower yourself, and you also know that it's really not as much about doing, it's about non-doing often.
Because we've experienced it firsthand. We've not just heard it from you, but integrated it into the body and put it into practice and feel the difference between being empowered and not.
Well, it's really not about doing, or especially not about having. A lot of people think that when they're empowered, they're going to have something. They're in the mode of having. What we'll learn is that it's really not about having. It's about being. It's about the sense of identity that we can adjust so that we identify with the energies associated with the desired experience. So, for example, if certain energy within you was contributing to the state or the experience of flow when you were a child, tapping into that energy and aligning with it so that your current sense of identity is in alignment with this energy, more so than others. That you put it on the forefront, you kind of put it on the driver's seat, if you will. Then this energy becomes your driving force, and it starts manifesting the experiences that it's associated with naturally. Does it make sense?
It does. Thank you.
And the beautiful thing is that it's always tested through movement. So movement, like we already talked about it, is something that we will continuously engage in our empowerment events, because there is no life without movement. And if you understand that you are the way you move, then it's an excellent way to test how you are. So we will have all kinds of wonderful movement practices, ranging from total spontaneous free flow dance to practicing certain meditative movements and energy awareness practices during our weekend workshop in January. And this is just going to be a nice beginning of a journey that you will be able to continue exploring, because we'll also give you a lot of methods for self-empowerment. You don't have to rely on anybody, on me or on Tyler or on anyone else. You, as the viewer of our webinar, will be able to continue experiencing self-empowerment on a daily basis. This is something that definitely leads to not just an event in your life, it leads to a lifestyle. It's an empowered lifestyle. Eventually it leads to the whole life path. That is an enlightened and empowered life path, within which each and every step along the way is an empowered and enlightened step. One step at a time, perhaps one step more empowered and more enlightened than the one before, so that your journey turns into a chain of impeccable steps. That's the powerful way to live, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, we have time for one more question, if you don't mind, Tyler.
Well, we've talked about a lot of the aspects of being in the flow and being empowered, and some extra surprises as well for us to flow with. You said it's in January. Perhaps we should talk about the event itself. It's over a weekend, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, in Marin, just north of San Francisco.
North of San Francisco, the town is called San Anselmo.
Right.
And it's an event that will start on Friday night with an introduction from 7 to 10, and the full day Saturday, and Sunday afternoon. What we will do is we will integrate into each of these days some discussion, some understanding of the principles, and some practices. Movement practices, both mindful movement, mindless movement, and anything in between. Well, I'm joking about mindless movement. It's kind of a funny thing. You basically allow the body to move spontaneously. This is something similar to what people would refer to as ecstatic dance. I prefer to call it a free flow dance. They essentially experience the ecstatic state of consciousness. And that somatically manifests the way that you are and the way that you move. You probably know a lot better than me, Tyler, what it feels like to experience the ecstatic dance. Maybe you can share with us a little bit about what it is.
Well, it is similar. With the help of the music, we are introduced to different patterns and different rhythms. And it becomes very clear when there's a resonance with the music, when the energy flows freely, and when the rhythms are ones that we don't resonate with, or dig deeper and to ask how we might move with this pattern or this rhythm, and what kind of emotions it might elicit. Are we comfortable with those? Can we be okay with them? This is the practice that we invite, not only with the music, but with ourselves and with others as individuals, as well as the group as a whole.
Wonderful. And as you pointed it out, it's not only an individual practice, although, of course, each and every one of us will be exploring what it's like to move freely and spontaneously and in an empowered fashion. But it's also a community experience. In a sense, we are in the process of creating a community of empowered individuals that also are dedicated to mutual empowerment. So how can we contribute to empowerment of other members of our community is just as important as how we contribute to our own empowerment. And the more people we help experience empowerment in their lives and help them manifest and live their dreams, the more people will help us manifest and live our dreams. So this is a very important aspect of our process. You can call it karma yoga, if you will. We essentially develop understanding that by participating in mutual empowerment with other people, we create a synergy, an energy field that envelopes all of us involved, and that creates a greater sense of empowerment than what we may be able to experience on our own. So this is a really exciting and intriguing aspect of our field of studies.
Sounds great. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Great, me too. So everybody who's watching this webinar, of course, would be welcome to participate in our Empowerment Weekend on January 23rd through 25th of 2015. It's going to be happening in San Anselmo, California. And you are welcome to register now before January 1st. We have an early bird registration discount. A totally ridiculous discount, 33% off. So instead of a regular rate of $149, you can register now for $99 for the whole weekend. $99 is going to be in effect through December 31st. After that, the registration will be $149. and $199 at the door. If you are a late bird and you decided to show up without registration, well, the price at the door is $199.
If there's space left.
That's right, if there is space available. And of course, if you have any questions about empowerment events, or any other aspects that we covered in our webinars, please don't hesitate to email us. You can reach me directly at tantrapa@gmail.com, tantrapa@gmail.com. And Tyler, perhaps you're available for questions, or I can field the questions myself, whatever works for you, man.
You can contact me at tyler@ecstaticdance.org.
Fantastic. I want to thank you so much, Tyler, for taking a time during your trip to Hawaii to connect with me online and facilitate this webinar. It's been a real pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for me as well. Thank you, Lama.
And I want to thank all of our viewers, and I look forward to seeing you all in our empowerment weekend. Until then, have a wonderful holiday season.